is still held in the soft, velvet embrace of the deepest night. And as you settle into your blankets, imagine a small stone workshop nestled at the edge of a sleeping monastery, where the air is perfectly still and cool. Inside the scriptorium, the air is thick with the comforting, heavy scent of aged parchment, sweet beeswax, and the deep, earthy aroma of dried ink, all lingering in the quiet space like a soft, invisible blanket. A single, small candle casts a dim, rhythmic orange glow across the high, arched shelves and the smooth wooden tables, creating a space that is perfectly safe, perfectly warm, and perfectly still. You are invited now to let your own breath slow down, to match the steady, peaceful beat of the resting world, and to drift away into the gentle, repetitive motions of the Illuminator's quiet day, feeling perfectly safe and perfectly still. Chapter 1. The Illuminator stirs in his small, quiet room long before the sun has thought to crest the distant, sleeping hills, his eyes opening slowly to the familiar sight of the heavy oak beams above his head, and he feels a deep, heavy sense of calm as he pushes back the thick wool blankets to stand on the cool, solid floorboards of his room. He dresses in the dim light of the early morning, his fingers moving with a quiet and practiced memory over the soft linen of his tunic and the worn leather of his belt. And the house remains entirely silent around him, a stillness that feels like a kind and gentle weight pressing softly against his skin as he moves toward the study where the books are born. He walks with soft, rhythmic footsteps across the stone floor, the transition from sleep to work marked by the cool touch of the air and the faint, sweet scent of the ink that waits in its ceramic jar. And he enters the workshop where the candlelight is already dancing on the walls. In the center of the room stands a great oak table with a slanted top, polished by years of hands and paper, and the Illuminator reaches for his first task, which is the slow and meditative preparation of the parchment, a sheet of fine vellum that is as smooth and white as a cloud in the summer sky. He selects a piece of pumice stone, feeling the rough, grainy texture against his palm, and he begins to rub the surface of the vellum in long, sweeping circles, a slow and repetitive motion that requires no thought at all, just the steady rise and fall of his arm. Rub, swirl, lift. Rub, swirl, lift. And with every movement, the stone makes a soft, shushing sound that is like the ocean far away. He repeats this many times, his mind drifting into a state of quiet meditation, where the only reality is the texture of the vellum and the rhythmic sound of his own breathing, until the surface is perfectly clear and ready to receive the ink. Next, he turns to the pigments, the small piles of colored earth and crushed minerals that sit in neat clay bowls, and he begins to grind a piece of lapis lazuli into a fine blue powder, uses a heavy stone pestle, moving it in slow, circular motions that make a low, grinding sound. A sound that is as steady and calming as a heartbeat. And he watches as the hard stone turns into a soft, blue dust that looks like the evening sky. He adds a few drops of clear water and a bit of egg white to the bowl, the liquid falling in slow, heavy beads that turn the powder into a rich, thick paint. And he stirs it with a small wooden stick until it is as smooth as silk, the scent of the egg and the mineral mixing together in a way that is earthy and deep. He prepares his brushes next, selecting a tiny brush made of the finest squirrel hair, and he runs his thumb over the soft bristles to ensure they are straight and clean, the feeling of the fur against his skin being as light as a feather. He lays the tools out in a neat and orderly line on the table, the brushes and the pins and the small jars of gold leaf, each one having its own place in the quiet order of the morning. The air in the workshop is beginning to brighten as the first hint of gold filters through the narrow window, casting long and soft shadows that stretch across the room to touch the far corners, where the scrolls and the empty jars wait in their own patient silence. He feels the coolness of the morning air on his face and the warmth of his own steady breath, a perfect balance of sensations that makes him feel grounded and safe, anchored in a moment of time that belongs only to him and the quiet work of the dawn. There is no hurry, no need to rush, for the lines are small and the day is long, and so he lingers over each small task, checking the points of his quills, or simply standing still and listening to the deep, resonant silence of the stone walls. His breath is slow and steady, matching the pace of his hands, and as the world begins to wake with the first soft light, he feels a deep and abiding contentment, knowing that everything is in its place and the day is unfolding exactly as it should. He touches the edge of a gold leaf sheet, feeling the incredible thinness and the way it shivers in the still air. And then he moves to the ruler, the wood feeling warm and familiar in his hand, as he prepares to mark the first lines of the day's beauty. Chapter 2. The sun has climbed a little higher in the soft, blue sky, casting a warm and buttery light across the Illuminator's table, and he begins the long and meditative process of painting a tiny, golden vine along the edge of a page, his hand moving slowly and deliberately across the white vellum. He takes up his finest brush, the silver handle feeling cool and light in his fingers, and he dips the tip into the small bowl of blue paint, watching the dark color cling to the soft hair in a tiny, perfect drop that catches the light like a jewel. He brings the brush to the paper and begins to draw a small, curved leaf, the movement starting in his wrist and flowing through his fingers, a hypnotic cycle that feels like the swaying of tall grass in a summer breeze. The brush makes no sound at all as it moves across the vellum, but he can feel the slight resistance of the surface, a soft and yielding touch that tells him the paint is flowing exactly as it should. Stroke, lift, breathe. Stroke, lift, breathe. A pattern that has no beginning and no end, only the steady and hypnotic rhythm of his own breathing and the soft heartbeat of the room. He leans his weight forward, his eyes following the tip of the brush as it creates a world of color and light. And he finds that his mind becomes as quiet and clear as the air above the clouds, far away from the worries of the world. He touches the surface of the parchment with his free hand, feeling the incredible smoothness and the coolness of the skin. And he pauses for a long minute just to breathe in the earthy, clean scent of the pigments as they begin to dry. Next comes the gold, the most quiet and delicate part of the day, and he takes a small wooden tool to apply a thin layer of sticky gesso to the center of a capital letter, the mixture looking like a clear, wet path on the white page. He waits for a moment, watching the gesso turn tacky and still, and then he carefully lifts a tiny square of gold leaf with a wide, soft brush, the gold moving so lightly that it seems to be floating on the air, almost weightless in its brilliance. He lays the gold over the gesso, his breath held in his chest to keep the air perfectly still, and he watches as the bright metal settles onto the page, catching the sunlight and turning into a small, glowing sun in the middle of the book. He uses a soft piece of cotton to press the gold down, a gentle and repetitive tapping motion that feels like the falling of a single leaf onto a quiet pond. And then he brushes away the extra bits, watching the golden dust sparkle in the light as it falls to the floor. He repeats this process for hours, moving from leaf to leaf and letter to letter, his hand never wavering and his mind never rushing. For he knows that beauty grows best in the silence of a patient heart. The room feels like a sanctuary, a place where the clocks of the world have stopped, and the only measure of time is the slow, invisible growth of the garden on the page, and the slow turning of the sun across the wooden floor. He feels the warmth of the light on his shoulders like a heavy, golden blanket, and the air is thick with the scent of the drying paints, a combination that feels like safety and home and ancient wisdom. He does not rush, for the stories he paints are eternal, and so he loses himself in the repetition, his eyes half closed as he listens to the soft rustle of the wind in the eaves and the distant, muffled sound of the forest below. Sometimes he stops to just look at a single blue flower he has made, admiring the way the color turns darker in the shadows and brighter in the light. And he feels a kinship with every artist who has ever looked at the world and tried to capture its peace. The paint on his fingers and the dust on his tunic are a source of comfort, a sign that he has spent his day in honest work. And he feels a deep and humming peace that radiates out from his chest to his very fingertips as the day moves on in its slow and perfect circle. Chapter 3. The afternoon sun has begun its long and lazy slide toward the horizon. The light in the stone workshop turning from a rich amber to a deep, warm purple. And the Illuminator feels a gentle, sleepy fatigue beginning to settle into his bonds. A warm and pleasant tiredness that tells him the work of the day is done. He begins the final, quiet tasks of the evening with a body that feels heavy and pleasantly relaxed. Moving through the study one last time to gather his tools and return them to their proper places in the wooden chest. He cleans his brushes with a soft scrap of linen and a bit of clear water, wiping away the dark blue and the bright red until the bristles are soft and white once more. And he places them carefully in their wooden boxes, hearing the small, final click of wood against wood in the quiet room. He gathers the finished pages, the large sheets of vellum feeling solid and heavy in his arms, and he slides them into their protective covers, each one making a soft, muffled sound as it finds its home on the high, wooden shelves, where they will rest until the morning light returns. He stands for a moment in the center of the room, looking at the empty table where the book lay just a moment ago, seeing the way the shadows have grown long and soft across the wood, and he feels a sense of completion that is as deep and quiet as the sea. The air is growing cooler now, carrying the scent of the night air and the first hints of the evening mist that rolls in from the valley below. And the Illuminator breathes it in with a sense of peace, feeling the weight of the day falling away as the world prepares to sleep. He walks slowly back toward his small bed in the corner of the room, his footsteps making a soft, rhythmic thud on the floor. And he sees the first star beginning to twinkle through the narrow window, a tiny diamond of light in the fading blue of the sky. He moves with a slow and fluid grace as he prepares for rest, extinguishing the single candle with a small metal snuffer, watching the tiny curl of smoke rise into the air and disappear into the darkness, leaving only the silver light of the moon to guide his way. He undresses with slow and practiced movements, laying his tunic across a wooden stool and feeling the lightness of his body as he steps into the cool, dark space of his bed, where the blankets are waiting for him like a warm embrace. He climbs into his bed, the linen sheets feeling cool and crisp at first, but quickly warming to the heat of his body as he pulls the thick wool blankets up to his chin, tucking them in around his shoulders until he is encased in a cocoon of warmth and safety. He lies there for a moment with his eyes open, looking at the dim outlines of the study, the familiar shapes of the shelves and the jars and the table, all resting in the quiet dark. His muscles feel loose and heavy, every tension of the day melting away into the soft mattress. And he lets his head sink into the pillow, his thoughts slowing down until they are nothing more than the gentle pulse of his own heartbeat. The silence of the workshop is total, a deep and liquid quiet that fills his ears and his heart. And he knows that the ink is dry, the gold is set, and the world is exactly as it should be, safe and still under the watch of the moon. He closes his eyes and breathes in the faint scent of parchment that lingers on his fingers. And as the house settles around him with a final, gentle sigh, he drifts off into a sleep that is as deep and nourishing as the colors he has spent his day painting. Sleep now. Sleep.